the other thing that is very important here, and you emphasized it, and you took out what the president said and what Prime Minister Netanyahu said, and it's very important. And in my discussions with the Israeli leaders who are here leading up to this agreement, it was very important to them as well. And that is, number one, if Hamas rejects the deal outright, then we turn to Prime Minister Netanyahu and his military for the solution to finish Hamas. No restraints. He does what he needs to do.
Yesterday at the White House, we saw a historical summit with President Donald J. Trump and our Prime Minister, Mr. Bibi Netanyahu. They hammered out a 20-point peace plan that could end the war in Gaza today. There was a glimmer of hopes, of optimism. Maybe this final peace proposal will take place. As Mr. Netanyahu said, either the easy way or the hard way. We prefer the easy way. Let's watch this interview to see how can this occur? How can this be implemented? We know Iran is the axis of evil in the Middle East. After the 12-day war, where are they now? And could this peace plan actually come to fruition? Let's listen to this discussion and we'll discuss it afterwards. Kindly subscribe to our channel so a little bit of light will push away a lot of darkness.
Let's go right to it. General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst. General Keane, we need hard men to enforce this. I hope hard men like yourself who have experience in the military and have suffered through this thing for however long it's been, almost 100 years now. I don't know, Jason, I'm just thinking 25, that's about 50 years plus. Anyway, you know what I mean. I'd like to see this thing work, but we need some hard men to enforce it. And if it's not enforced, if Hamas doesn't work it out, then let the wrath of God come down on them once and for all, General Keane. That's my take. You're the expert. You tell us.
Well, first of all, this is unlike the other deals because most of the other deals were all about hostage release, prisoner exchange. That was a central part of the deal. That is still at the top of this deal, but this is an end-of-war deal, and that's what makes it different. Secondly, the President of the United States is intimately involved in this deal, in all the conditions of it, and in negotiating those conditions with everybody except Hamas. Hamas now has this deal in its comprehensive nature, and they'll make a decision. We've seen this before with Hamas. We get right up to the end, people around that are optimistic, and then Hamas says no. However, there are some differences here now with Hamas. Let's just take a look at them for a second. They're on about their third or fourth tier of leadership, except for one brigade commander. All the rest of the people have no experience whatsoever, and his is limited, to say the least. Many of their fighters now are teenagers, as opposed to the hardened, battle-tested fighters that they had. They have some of them left, but most of them have been killed. And that's the reality. Now, down in their hearts, are they still the diabolical, barbaric people that want to destroy the state of Israel and make it go away and have a one-state solution here? You betcha they are. But the conditions are a little different this time. And also they know that Trump is there, and he's not trying to arbitrate. He is clearly taken a side with Israel, and he's presented terms to Hamas that he thinks are fair. So will these guys take the first part of the deal, which is give up the hostages in 72 hours, and in exchange for your own freedom to a place of your choosing, and Israel has made a public declaration that you will be safeguarded through that transition. Would that have some appeal to people who are willing to die for their cause? Remains to be seen. And the other thing that is very important here, and you emphasized it, and you took out what the president said and what Prime Minister Netanyahu said, and it's very important. And in my discussions with the Israeli leaders who are here leading up to this agreement, it was very important to them as well. And that is, number one, if Hamas rejects the deal outright, then we turn to Prime Minister Netanyahu and his military for the solution to finish Hamas. No restraints. He does what he needs to do. That's step one. Number two, if they say yes to the deal, and they're going to exchange the hostages and do that, and Israel pulls back its forces, and this other part starts to fall in place with a body that's overlooking them to see that they are disarming. This is the peace board. And are they doing just that? And are they moving away from control? If they renege on that, then everything comes to a halt. That conclusion has to be made by that board.
Yes.
And seeing it for what it is and not playing games with it. You know, these guys are very good at deception. They say one thing and do another.
Well, I call
that's been their mantra for years.
I know. I call it the wrath of God scenario. The wrath of God scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it. You're right. President Trump is more involved in this than anything else we've seen before. But I'm just worried. General, look, no one could predict the Hamas story, Hamas factions. I don't know who exactly we are talking to there. I'm sure you're right. You're down to the 4th or 5th level. I don't know what that means. Maybe they'll release the hostages. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll disarm. I don't know. But this board of peace, it will be chaired by President Trump. But it has to have, General, you know what I mean, hard men, okay? Hard people, could be women too, who have had experience down through the years with the, battle-tested, tough people, not first-time nice guy negotiators, the nice-looking suits. I'd like to have about 20 General Keanes on this oversight board to run this thing. That's what I'm looking for, honestly. That's the way I see it. That's the only way this is going to work. That's the only way this is going to work. You know that, and I know that.
So I agree with what you're saying. The people there should be experienced and tough-minded and know who they're really dealing with here in terms of Hamas. It was very important to the Netanyahu administration that President Trump say what he did say. And that is, look, if Hamas reneges on this deal and they're not going to give up control, which has been their point all along, they have never agreed to that, giving up control. If they renege on it, which is somewhat predictable, the president said then he's going to release Prime Minister Netanyahu to do what he needs to do, and he will fully support him. That will register with Hamas, that Netanyahu is coming for him, and he's got the president's backing to do it. All that said, I think we have set as good a conditions to get a deal as possible with Hamas in terms of providing them an incentive that take the deal and you get to live, don't take the deal, and death is pretty certain. That's where we are here.
You've been talking to President Trump on this. You've been talking to President Trump. Does he understand this idea, how important this board ultimately is going to be? I mean, listen, I have nothing against Tony Blair. I rather like Tony Blair as a moderate prime minister, almost a conservative prime minister who wanted to help the United States and President George W. Bush in Iraq and in the Middle East and so forth after 9/11. But we need tough guys. Tony Blair is one thing. He's a diplomat. We need tough guys to implement this board. I mean, we need to staff this board. Looks like a military operation, isn't it, sir? That's what's missing. And in some sense, I'd like to know more about that, if there is more to be learned. Because that's going to be the key. This is going to be the central command of this whole operation. At some point, somebody might have to pull the plug and say Hamas and its friends are not playing by the rules. Therefore, comes the wrath of God. Or somebody has to say they are playing by the rules, and we can develop Gaza as per the Trump peace plan suggests. You follow me? It seems, as I look at this so-called oversight committee is so terribly important. What does the president think about that? When you talk to him, what does he tell you about it?
Well, two things here. One, I don't talk about what he says. Those conversations belong to him, not to me.
Yes.
Secondly, I will say this. I've never had a discussion about the peace board because it's all new to me to a certain degree here. He revealed today much more about it than what we knew. And I'm looking at the chairman of the board, and we know who the chairman of the board is. That much we have identified, and that's Donald J. Trump. I'm convinced he will surround himself with some people that's going to help him to succeed here. And certainly, we don't need anybody on that board that doesn't have some experience here and knows what we're dealing with in these diabolical, fanatical killers in Hamas and where they're coming from. Yes. So I trust him in doing that, Larry. I underscore with you the importance of it. I'm there with you.
All right. Well,
but let's give him some time to figure out who he wants to share that responsibility with.
No question. I'm in favor of it. I want to be an optimist about this, but I'm also a realist. I learned my realism from you. I mean, we've seen this story before, and it usually doesn't work out well where the terrorists are concerned. Let me have last question, General Keane. It may seem distant, but not so much, because Iran, the subject of Iran came up today in the presser, and no questions and no answers. It just came up. Look, Iran, they've been decimated, they've been obliterated, their military structure, all that. But the crazy mullahs are still in charge, and the crazy mullahs are still they're the puppeteers of the Hamas crazies. I sure would feel better if we had regime change in Iran, or I wouldn't trust Iran until and unless we had, a civilized group of people running Iran. This is it may sound like a side deal, but I just wonder about that, because that web with Hamas, that connection with Hamas is still there. Thoughts on that? Iran, I know it's not central, but it could become central.
Well, we can't overstate the significance of what the Israelis have achieved in achieving its domination over Iran and its proxies. Many opportunities that have come from that. But Larry, and this is normalization with Lebanon, security agreement with Syria, the possibility of Abraham Accords, and we can see what the impact is with the Gaza potential here. But we have to be clear-eyed. Iran leaders are still in charge, as you mentioned. We know that they they intend to recover their nuclear program, their ballistic missile program, their air defense system. In other words, they're going right back to the path that they were on. They have not made decisions to execute that. Israel is watching that like a hawk. And when they do make that move, they will strike. They will never, ever again let Iran get down the road with nuclear capabilities or with ballistic missile programs. It's not going to happen. Number two, we should not, in my judgment, offer them some kind of a peace deal here because they are the same people, the same diabolical people in charge. We should be squeezing them economically, put more pressure on that regime, continue to isolate them diplomatically. Why? Because of the regime change that you're talking about. We're not going to be able to force a regime change unless we fought a war with them, and there's no reason to do that. But the amount of humiliation that they have suffered in the minds of the elites that are supporting the regime is significant. And the more pressure on that regime, the better. And it would also discourage them from doing what we know they want to do, go right back to where they were before. And there's no change there whatsoever. And we've got to be clear-eyed about that. Iran's leaders are the same diabolical leaders that are completely willing to destabilize the Middle East, and we've got to be all over them. I think we can put more pressure on them, not less.
Yes.
And then if they move in that direction, Israel already has a green light from the president to attack.
All right.
And that all has to happen.
Maximum pressure. Thank you, General Keane. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Appreciate your whole point of view and your wisdom.
Well, we heard it from a general who understands warfare, who understands what's on the table. Cautious optimism is too optimistic, as they say. The very chance of Hamas accepting this peace plan is almost slim to none. But as he said, the wrath of God, which means basically what Mr. Donald J. Trump asked Netanyahu a month ago already, finish the job. Get it done. This should have been done on October 8th. This should have happened a long time ago. But the narrative has changed. And this was so critical and so important to be able to have this moment that the world leaders get together and finally, on the world stage, they could announce Hamas has to end the war. It's not Israel has to end the war. With all the shoutings, with all the protests, free Palestine. That's not what this is about. That's not going to end the war. What's going to end the war is Hamas giving back the hostages, dead and alive, and leaving Gaza. That will end the war. The 20-point peace plan that was orchestrated yesterday, they hammered it out. Israel has been ready. Israel has been ready throughout the whole war to end the war sooner than later. Hamas is not going to give up their sick, radical, Islamist, jihadist ideology that they're not going to allow Israel to exist or the Jewish people to exist. As long as that hatred exists, it is incumbent upon us, it behooves us to eradicate that. We're in the 21st century. They're still stuck in the 8th century or in the 7th century, in the Stone Ages. They're stuck there. They haven't moved forward. We have. If not going to join us, then they got to disappear. Because we cannot live our lives under the fear of a repeat October 7 again and again and again, as they have vowed to do. And how the world just buys into their fake propaganda, to their lies, is beyond us. I mean, we are smarter than that. We know more. Why did we fall prey to the social media that shows you a 30-second clip and you take that as truth? And then all of a sudden you've drawn your own conclusions. We are dealing with an axis of evil, and you're dealing with a democracy, the only democracy in the Middle East, whose whole purpose is to be a light unto the nations, whose whole purpose is to live, support life, promote life, sustain life, provide life with all the comforts it needs. That's Israel. Versus a death cult who breastfeeds their children hate, anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, anti-Israel, anti-West. These two polar opposites cannot coexist. Darkness will not exist in the presence of light. So we need to be a greater light to eliminate the darkness. The president has given an ultimatum: accept this final peace offer, or Israel finish the job. And I really hope that Israel does finish the job. It is, for us, we're not at war. Our borders, we don't have terrorists living at our borders as Israel has. But thinking about the thousands of soldiers whose lives is on the line every day in Gaza. These are young soldiers who have a whole life ahead of them. They are sacrificing their lives so that Israel can exist. Every day in war, every day they are at the danger of losing their life. Let's end this war. Let's turn our swords into plowshares, as in the prophet says, and let us see better and greater times. We know the darkest moment before dawn is the darkest moment of dusk. So we are at the darkest moment. The crack of dawn is about to come with the revelation of the Messiah that will bring peace to the whole world, as reflected in Isaiah 53, when the lion and the lamb will lie together, where there's not going to be any more any jealousy, any war, and only peace and God's name will be known throughout the whole world. Let's pray, and we hope that happens speedily in our days. Amen. God bless you. God loves you.